He takes stuff down and says, here's the, it's approved.
This is the first year I haven't caught, I didn't catch a storm. With me being laid up for the first, I got 20 phone calls, like, just tell them. Just tell them to go back to the list, because that's, they get us off the capillary beekeepers.
Yeah.
Tell them to go back to capillary beekeepers and find somebody else on the list.
So there was interior
So
work.
tell them, we're sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah, looking in the windows. I know. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to track that down without address, but
Do you have anybody on the phone?
maybe they'll
Nobody.
discover it at some point.
Yeah. Ken, are you good?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to call this July 19th, 2022 meeting to order. Would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary,
How you doing?
please call the roll.
Here.
Ms. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Seitz,
Here.
Ms. Willenbecker,
Here.
Mr. Reddinger,
Here.
Ms. Lloyd was ill and not able to come, and Mr. Strickland was here.
Excellent, thank you for the update. At this time, I'd like to report on our last executive session. We discussed personnel and matters of litigation. No action was taken. At this time, I have a presentation. Frank Grumbine, PA Historical. Is he here? Okay. I have another presentation, the Caustic property.
Yeah. So you're ready for us to begin?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I'm Elizabeth Feather. I'm the attorney for Barbara Caustic, who is the trustee of her late father, Edward Caustic's trust, as well as the executrix of her mother, Jeannie Caustic's estate. And the estate and the trust are the co-owners of 2 parcels that are landlocked in Middletown Borough. And I actually have a map here to distribute to help you identify these parcels. So if you won't mind passing these around, please. So the parcels I'm referring to are the ones that are highlighted. One has a black line around it. The other one is highlighted in green. They end in numbers 75 and 76. And as I said, these are landlocked parcels that are located off of Hugh Avenue. And we are offering them to the borough as a gift. We're not asking for any consideration for them, but we would like the borough to take ownership of them. The borough already owns the parcels that are directly in front towards the Few Street. I believe it ends in parcel number 31, and then the corresponding one over in front of the other parcel. So those 2 parcels actually at one point in time had houses on that were owned by the Caustic family members. And after the flood, they, through the FEMA program, were purchased back, and the borough has current ownership of those 2 parcels that are directly adjacent and in front towards Few. So what we are asking for is for the borough to please consider taking ownership of the 2 parcels I've highlighted on there, and we're asking for your consideration with that. We are obviously stuck. We have nobody who wants to purchase them. They can't be used for anything. I believe legally they probably should have been conveyed with the other parcels that at one time had the houses on back in the FEMA program, but they were missed somehow. And they really always, if you trace back the ownership, they were owned by the Costics, and for whatever reason, Mr. and Mrs. Costick, Edward and Jeannie, the parents, when they sold or conveyed the properties to their children that owned the corresponding lots in front of those landlocked lots, they never transferred those or conveyed ownership of those to the children as well. So when the children did their FEMA program, I think that's how it got missed. It was just overlooked that their parents still owned the landlocked sections. So we are at a loss really for what to do with the parcels. If the borough does not take them back, we can let them go to tax sale. The family, including my client Barbara Costick, who's here, does not want to take ownership of them. So to me, it seems like the best thing to do is for the borough to take ownership, since the borough already owns the adjacent properties.
I've walked these properties, and I would say, in my opinion, over 3/4 of them is like brush/trees. I'd be lucky to say if there's 2 passes with a lawnmower's worth of grass, which I think is probably been absorbed by our lawn team forever, since the buyout. I know the aerial pictures don't do it real justice, but they kind of look like that. It's just.
Yeah, there's aerial pictures behind the front page. So the next 2 pages show that's what, from the above. It looks like trees for the most part, like Mr. Reddinger said.
What really I think what really bothers me is that we are landlocking them. So I think if we don't want to take them on, we should at least give them an easement on our property so they can access it. Because at this point in time, they physically can't even get to it without having access or permission. So it would be my recommendation that we just absorb them. I feel the exposure is really small.
Looks like they're only 25 feet
It's
deep,
25 feet.
which is, what, about as wide
3/4 of
as this
it.
room?
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like small brush, thorns.
This is like the embankment along the railroad.
There was one tree that is fallen over. There was maybe another tree still standing on them. It's just kind of blends in with everything else down there.
Yeah, if you're interested in the actual square footage or the legal description, I do have the descriptions from the deed. And the square footage of parcel ending in 76 is 3,479 square feet. And the parcel ending in 075 is 3,367 square feet.
So, I'd like council to consider it, at least give them an easement if we're not looking to absorb it, but I don't see any exposure with absorbing these properties. See how it would really affect us at all, but that's for everybody to weigh in on.
I personally think we should just absorb them. Are we going to amend
We don't have to because it isn't on the agenda.
that's what I'm talking about. Are we going to amend the agenda for tonight, or are we just going to add it to next?
No, it's on the agenda.
Oh, it is on the
It's on
agenda.
the
Well, do you want to direct your solicitor to get back to you with some?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I assume you guys would be willing to prepare proposed deeds and
Oh, yes, yeah, we will prepare the deeds and
affidavits of value and
whatever else.
then maybe we could put it on, if council's inclined to put it on as
Next
a
agenda.
future agenda item and actually accept the deeds.
I'm in favor of absorbing the properties.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a census to
So put
absorb
that-
that kid.
We'll put that on the agenda.
Put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Our August meeting,
The only thing I would ask
if
is,
that's enough time, if you get it.
can you prepare most of that to keep our legal
Oh,
exposure?
yes, yeah, I assumed we would be doing that. I would prepare the deeds and statements of value.
So then all we would have to do is accept them.
Yep.
Excellent. Any other questions? Okay, we're good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Agenda item number 1.
Do I have a motion to approve council meeting minutes for July 5th, 2022 meeting as submitted?
Public comment.
Oh, we didn't have public comment.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
This presentation's got away with me. Public comment on agenda items. Seeing no public comment, agenda item number 1.
Yes, do we have a motion to approve council meeting minutes for the July 5th, 2022 meeting as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, seconded by Counselor Miller. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2.
Do I have a motion to approve payment of bills as shown on the accounts payable list dated July 14th, 2022, which is for the period of July 1, 2022 through July 14, 2022, and to ratify approval of such bills already paid and to authorize the appropriate officials to take required actions to make said payments?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, seconded by Counselor Sykes. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3.
Okay, agenda item number 3 is our Emaw Street streetscape project. In your packet, HRG has provided an estimate, an engineer's estimate for the amount of the project in the amount of $951,697. Now, this is the streetscape project that would improve these 2 blocks right here in front of the Borough Building from the Brownstone over to Wood Street. This was a project that we previously submitted, I think, 2.5 years ago for a CFA multimodal grant, which we were unsuccessful in getting. Since that time, our engineer's estimate has increased, as you can guess, with the inflation. So you're seeing it now estimated to be at $951,697. In your packet is 2 resolutions. The reason I'm having a discussion is because there's 2 resolutions in your packet. One is for a 70/30 grant, which is the standard grant through the Multimodal Fund Program. However, you can request a waiver of the 30% match and ask for something less. And the second resolution in your packet is one asking for a waiver and a 20% match. And the reason I did that, because 20% of 951,000 is going to be roughly $190,000, okay? That's very similar to what we expected to pay 2.5 years ago on a 30% match for a $600,000 project. So I would suggest that we follow that route. So I'm going to read that motion first. If it fails, we can consider the 30%. Now, we'll say this. You get points based on how much money you're, among many things, one of them is how much money you're going to put toward the grant. So you could probably get a few more points if you go for a 30% match as a 20% match. However, because of the cost, I think it's significant enough that we go for the 20, see what happens. Because the other thing we're going to do, we're in the process of that you've already approved us doing, is looking at alternative funding other than the CFA fund grant. CFA requires a resolution to move forward. That's the multimodal. However, we just recently had a pre-application meeting with the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. Sally and I went through the pre-application process for a HATS RTP grant. HATS is the Harrisburg Area Transportation System, I think. RTP is a grant that is federal money issued through the county, the Tri-County area. That has a 20% match as well. So our plan is to apply for both of these and see if we can get one or the other. We are told that we did a pretty good job with our pre-application meeting with the county folks. We did I think Sally and I did a pretty good presentation. And the county grant, we're told, is less competitive than the CFA grant.
Oh.
The CFA grant, often when you submit for it, if you are awarded, you don't always get the full 80%. So for that reason, I'm going to read the motion for the 20% grant on the CFA. Any questions before I go on? Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-16, authorizing HRG to request an 80/20 grant from the Multimodal Transportation Program in the amount of $761,357 with matching funds of 20% in the amount of $190,340 to be utilized from pooled cash account with Council President and the Director of Finance Administration as designated signatories.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, second by Counselor Miller. Any questions or comments?
Ken, may I ask, when is this due and when would it be awarded?
This would be, the CFA is due later in this year, so it wouldn't be awarded till next year, is my understanding. However, the HATS RTP grant is due the end of this month. And we're already moving forward that, we'll submit that. And that will know whether or not we're successful there, probably in September.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 4, Civil Service.
Do I have a motion to adopt the civil service eligibility list as approved by the Civil Service Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, second by Counselor Seitz. Any questions or comments on the Civil Service? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 5.
Okay, our COVID leave policy expired in April, and I didn't think we'd be in this position again, but we have some people out again with the illness. So do I have a motion to approve the extension of the borough policy of emergency sick leave bank from April 30th, or until April 30th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, second by Counselor Willenbecker. Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with 1 no. Agenda item number 6.
Okay, do I have a motion to delegate the Public Safety Director to make a conditional offer of employment for a full-time police officer with the Middletown Borough Police Department at a salary in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement, conditional upon meeting civil service requirements, a background investigation, as well as any pre-employment testing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, second by Counselor Miller. Any questions or comments on the hire? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 7.
Do I have a motion to approve the special request application from the Middletown Amateur Baseball Association to close streets around the Med Ed ball field at 222 Susquehanna Street on July 23rd and July 24th for a baseball tournament?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Counselor Kuskevich, second by Counselor Seitz. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 8, Manager's Report. Mr. Kleinfinger.
All right, thank you. You already covered item number 1 on my report, as that was on the agenda, and item number 2. Item number 3 has been covered. Item number 4 is, and we have, I think, a representative from the contractor who is working for Veolia. They're requesting to close the street on East High Street at the High Street tank for their painting project. The request is in your packet. It's the 300 block of High Street, and they're requesting to close the street from September 12th through December 12th so that they can set up their equipment that's required to sandblast the tank. And is it Mr. Stoltzfus? He's here if you have any questions. Come on, you can come on up and maybe Greg talked to Mr. Stoltzfus earlier in the week or last week about this, and there is a possibility that once he's done sandblasting the tank, that possibly some of his equipment could be moved maybe somewhere mid-range of this 3-month period, where maybe one lane could be opened up to free up some parking again. But, that's,
Yeah, I have a question. How does emergency vehicles get through there?
They would have to be routed around. We would have to,
I mean, if something happens at one of those houses, how do they get in there?
so we'd only be blocking 2 homes. And the home that's on North Race is access from the street anyways. There's no driveway on High Street. And the next house, forget the address, the next one in from the corner.
There's I think, Jenny, there's a diagram in your
Yeah.
packet to help, but,
312.
so it would be fenced off the way it looks also.
Right, the sidewalk would be open on the side of those two houses, and the side towards the water tank, it would be blocked off.
And then what happens on the Vine Street side of High Street? They only can come in from Vine? They won't be able to, like, go around the block?
Correct.
This, on your diagram here, the A, B, C, D, is that representing your equipment?
Yeah,
And
I'm
then
not sure if
H
you got
is-
the page, I'm not sure if you got the page that has listed what the
Okay,
equipment
yeah,
is,
I saw
and then
that.
H is just access for, servicing that equipment and, loading and unloading. Like, we need some maneuverable, space for our, like, for our telehandler and so on a daily basis.
So the equipment that's set up there, like an A, B, C, D, E through G, is things like generators, air compressors to run your pressure blasting equipment, probably
Yeah,
a
there's
tank that's filled with sand or whatever you use. And
So we use a recyclable media, and so there's a tractor trailer size unit that recovers and recycles that media. And then there's dust collectors, and there's a decon trailer for our employees, and there's also an office trailer and compressors and generators and so on.
And I think Greg talked to you about, there's any way to shift any of this onto the sidewalk, but I think the comment there was that it's not very wide, correct?
It's not very wide. I couldn't put any of the big stuff there. I think we just crushed the sidewalk.
And then you got a bank right behind the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's so steep right there. Like, if the site was level, we could fit a lot more things around. But it's so steep in the front, and in the back, we will be putting some equipment where it's level behind the tank. We'll be putting equipment back there as well, but as soon as we erect scaffold around the tank, then that access is blocked, because the driveway is fairly wide enough for the scaffold.
Mhm.
Is that equipment real noisy?
So the equipment it all has sound attenuation on it. So it meets the decibel level requirements for working in towns. It would be all below 80 decibels from the given distance away. So the abrasive blasting is noisy. We do also use silenced, I say silenced, it's still noisy, but much quieter glass nozzles. It's kind of a new technology. But that's all, within probably 8 to 4 range during the day.
Mr. Stolfus, we appreciate what a big job it is. Yeah. But, so our questions really aren't questioning your job, but sort of the impact on the neighborhood, just so
Understood.
we understand.
Mhm.
What would be the work hours?
Our crews would probably arrive around 7 in the morning, but we wouldn't make noise right away. Probably noise would begin more like 8 o'clock.
Around
And then
8?
they'd probably be wrapping up to leave the site around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we don't plan to work any weekends, just be 5 days a week.
Not to make another project out of a project, and I'm obviously not looking at it, but I am familiar with the site. What if that embankment, what if we were to cut into that and do a retaining wall and actually level that out? That way you could maybe have your A and B and get some of the other equipment into that site a little bit more.
There's a
I
lot,
think there's buried
underground,
piping.
there's underground stuff there.
There's-
Like-
Well, I think it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I know there's a valve vault there, and I think the water mains come right through the front of the property.
There's a hydrant right in front of it as well.
Yeah,
And
there's 2 hydrants right in that vicinity, one at the tank, one at the street.
And another quick neighborhood question.
Sure.
So 3 months, is that,
It's a bit of an arbitrary number. We will open the street up as quickly as possible.
I know,
And it's one that, if we have 3 weeks of bad weather in that 3 months, it's gonna take all 3 months,
right.
It's, can we get it done in 2? It's probably we can, but I would rather ask for 3 and get 3 and give it back early than ask for an extension.
My suggestion would just be to grant it so he can start the job submitting an extension for the same exact thing is not a big deal. But if you grant it for 3 months, it is what it is. If you grant it for 1 month and see how things go, see what complaints you get, see if there's any way to do workarounds. If not, then you just grant the extension. If there is a workaround, then you have the ability to revisit it in 30 days.
Yeah.
Or we just let you guys work 24/7 and get it done in 2 weeks. And then we raise water rates even more.
There you go. I did have one question. Is that a borough roadway or is that a state
Yes.
roadway? It is, okay.
It's a borough roadway, but you'll have to follow PennDOT's requirements for the detour.
Okay, that's what I was driving on.
Thank you, Matt.
This is a tough one, guys, I'm not gonna lie. This is,
There's just no way.
It's a tough spot. You normally don't see standpipes like that tucked in between housing like that with very little property.
Uh-huh.
No, not
It's
typically.
just the funny, yeah.
It's usually more like North Union or the one along the turnpike where there's a decent amount of ground around it.
Right.
This one's on the postage stamp.
Why they didn't get one of those properties when they built that, I don't know, but I think it was built in the early 70s.
Yeah, I think the neighboring properties are the slope of the tank footing. So it's like their properties are angled on behalf of the tank.
is any of these A, B, C, D, and E, are any of these able to be on trailers that you could move them
They're all trailer units.
to one side of the street like every night? So when you're after hours,
Not,
you'd have access? So it would be, shut down
yeah, it takes
10 hours
about,
a day?
it takes about 2 days to set it up.
Okay.
So not really practical for that type of thing, but what we may be able to do is, once we're done with, the grit recycling rig, we can get that out of there and consolidate. The only issue of opening up part of the street that I could see being a problem is, if people try to come up the wrong way, say we open up one way, and there's only one lane, that could cause some congestion issues, where if it's just shut, it might be a safer solution for.
Even as far as, even if half the street was open, even if it was still blocked off, but those two homes still could get in, and if there was emergency response vehicles that needed to get through, they could. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm thinking how to make everybody happy.
Sure, so we would plan to have a chain link fence around our equipment for security reasons. At the point that we would need a smaller footprint, we could bring that back and, block off less, either at least allowing curb parking in front of those two homes.
I don't think everybody on High Street there has a driveway on the south side. So if they're coming in, forced now to come in off of Vine Street in order to park in front of their house, we may have to let them park facing the wrong direction. Otherwise, they'd have to spin around to get,
Right.
or even when they leave, then they have to spin around. And they'll be doing 3-point turns all the time, probably. Street.
That's not a bad idea.
But, I mean, what I'm saying, the only reason I'm bringing that up is because you won't just, potential of these two homes saying they're affected, but everybody probably on that side of the street with how they have to get to their home and turn around to get back out.
A lot of them don't have a driveway.
See, the busiest thoroughfares in town are obviously Union, Main, and Vine. And then the ones that are typically busy after that are the ones that connect them in High Street. That's a very busy street. And so this situation, that's why I think you grant it for 30 days. You just heard him say maybe after a period of time you can consolidate, move his fences, see what it's like after 30 days, rather than shutting the street down with a blanket 3 months.
I just don't know.
It's been rough
You
for
could, I
everyone.
just don't know what the alternate plan is, where you go with the equipment to finish the job.
Yeah, I mean, really what we're up against is having this street closed was a condition of our bid. And until last week, it was Veolia's responsibility to be here soliciting for the street closure, and they kind of passed it off on us last week. So otherwise, I would have been here months ago, because we did this job last year. And so it's,
So
if
bid
it
with
feels
the
last
expectation
minute,
it was already
being handled by them, yeah.
being handled by Viola.
Yeah, and when my original contact with Veolia or Suez, she left the day that they changed names. And so that's why I think that ball got dropped. And, they put it on me last week, basically. So, if it feels rushed, yeah, it is. I feel rushed. I would have been here a couple months ago to talk about this if I knew it was my responsibility.
I think the best we can do is try to communicate to the neighbors what to expect and.
I agree, Ellen. I think there should be a meeting with those people up there if it's gonna be closed for 3 months. I mean, they have a right to get an explanation and know what to expect.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. We can talk about that, but a letter inviting them, either explaining it or inviting them to call with questions or.
Viola should really be doing that outreach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Their
exactly.
project.
We don't own the system right
We
now.
did a
we lease it.
contract with them to run the system.
You're
I mean-
exactly right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's their,
Yeah, good point.
they should be here tonight as well.
Absolutely.
They are on the
That
agenda.
is true, but the neighbors are gonna call us, and they're gonna think, you know,
Yeah, typically, we do a lot of work for Aqua around Philadelphia area, and their policy is that we, the contractors, send letters to all the close neighbors and give contact information and kind of an explanation of our work and so on. And we're plenty willing to do that too
okay,
in this situation. Not only talk about the street closure, but talk about the work that we're going to be doing, the hours,
yeah,
you know, and what to expect.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna need that.
Mhm.
I
That would
mean,
be
they're
good.
better to explain how this all works than us. I mean,
Right.
That's a good point, but. Well, that would be good.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're expecting to do that.
Okay.
I just would need to, we need to get all that
That's something
addressed.
that you as a company do as a courtesy.
Yeah, I mean, some owners, like Aqua, requires that we do that. But in this situation, I don't think it's a contract requirement, but we're plenty willing to do that.
I think the
well, maybe
operator
that's,
should also do it.
that's one of the conditions of an approval, that he does that for us.
I think that you condition the approval on the operator also doing it, instead of just putting that on the contractor.
We should press the operator for what it's worth.
Yeah, the one good thing is we are a local contractor. We're based in Manheim. I live 10 minutes away from here. In fact, I just recently bought some property in town, so now I'm a neighbor too.
Oh,
Well,
One of the things that happens in project management is, this is why in the past I was reluctant to like insert myself in notifications about projects that we don't necessarily have control over, is because when you do that, then the public keeps coming back to us for answers to things.
Right.
And it's gonna get to the point where we don't have the answers and we're not the project manager. Project manager will have the authority to direct a contractor, hey, we're paying you, you have to do this. Where I don't really have that leverage, or the borough doesn't have that same leverage. That's why it's always good to come from the operator.
I agree. It's the same situation, Ian, if you remember from Halloween down
Yep.
by.
oh, yeah.
That was the operator that should have been communicated, and everybody kept reaching out to the borough. That was not a borough project.
Yep.
So if you grant this, I would condition it on them sending out
I thought
preemptive
Suez
letters.
did a horrible job of coordination on Trick or Treat Night.
Yep.
I mean, they're out there operating backhoes in the street. It was awful. It was awful. I flipped out.
When does this start? What's the date that you're looking for?
I was asking for September 12th.
September
Uh,
12th.
The schedule with Veolia is that after Labor Day, they will begin drawing the water down in that tank. And so that's a common date that water companies pick, is after that holiday, then bring them down. We do that for,
We're only halfway through July. So I would approve this and say that the operator has to have a letter out by August 12th. It's a month in advance of their start time.
Well, we can press the operator, but if you're offering that as another professional courtesy, we'll
Oh,
take
yeah.
you up on it.
We can definitely do that.
So we put that on the agenda for,
Mhm.
we have our business meetings in 2 weeks where we'll, vote on the issue. That give you enough time?
In 2 weeks to have a letter
Yeah.
out?
Well, in 2 weeks, we'll vote on the
Oh, yeah,
approval of
yeah.
this. This is our workshop tonight.
Sure.
Typically, we hear presentations and so forth, and we vote in 2 weeks.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do you want him to have a sample of the letter? I mean, we might as well have a sample of it, so we
Sure.
know it addresses everything.
Yeah, good idea.
Because if we don't,
Yeah.
we don't want the man coming back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could do
Yeah,
that,
I can
send it to
email
Greg, or I
Greg.
think you have Greg's contact
Mhm.
information.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have mine,
We
but,
can send him a draft.
yeah.
And then, would you guys be able to be helpful with the addresses you'd like the neighbors you'd like us to send to? Or at
Well,
least some
Suez
direction?
should be able to give you those. I'll contact their project manager, Cody,
Sure.
tomorrow, because they have accounts for all the water accounts there.
Sure.
And they should be able to give you those things.
I guess my question is, how far out, do you have any opinion on that? Like, how far out, do we do
I'm
adjoining
thinking the people who
neighbors
live
or-
on Ray Street, the people on High Street, probably
Okay.
down past at least the Briar Cliff, because once you come up, past Briar Cliff, you can't go straight anymore. You have to go right down to, and it's tough to make a left turn there at Racing Main to go to the light. So, yeah, it'd be nice if you had what your detour route's gonna be, like attached, like a sketch attached to this draft letter that's gonna go out too, so
Sure,
we could see that, Matt could see that, talk to you about it.
sounds good.
Should we sit with the police, fire
Yeah,
chief,
that's what I was
make
thinking.
sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll show it to them too,
Okay,
okay?
any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Sure. Yeah,
Thanks.
if you'd like me at the next meeting, Greg could let me know that. Or
Okay.
if you need me here.
It'd probably be, if you penciled in, it'd probably be a good idea, because we have a couple members that aren't here tonight that might be here at that meeting and might have another question or two. Okay?
Number 5.
All right, item number 5, I was contacted by the school district. They're looking at creating a way for students to meet graduation requirements by serving either an internship or doing community service. They've contacted us. I've talked to Greg about it in some detail, and there's no limit on how many children we have to accommodate, but Greg didn't have any opposition to working with the school district on it. I wanted to let you folks know, get your idea and put it. They're looking to get, I think, 10 or 12 hours a week, or a minimum, not a week, but total for each student. That it's a pathway to help them graduate. I don't. If you want to know more, I can have Mr. Ortiz come in at our business meetings to talk more about it. But it's.
Is it like clerical kind of work, or?
Well, it's either internship or community service. Community service will be, we get somebody for probably 10 hours and they wash a car for us, 2
Okay.
days.
They're not going to be operating any
Then the
equipment?
intern
or-
would be more like, okay, you get to follow the manager around or the public works director around for a day and as an internship, learn what they do.
Yeah.
They
They're not
probably-
running power
They probably go
tools.
back and write something to their teacher, what they learned, what they saw, that sort of thing. And it gives them some credits on their grades. So.
Is that something that you want on your plate?
That's why I took it to Greg and Matt, and Greg didn't have a problem with it, but of course he'd be following somebody around that Matt's in the street doing. But yeah, you do have to watch them.
Right.
And but we could say, Greg can pick whether he wants just one person to help out or two. You can tell Mr. Ortiz I can do one this semester. But yeah, we definitely can't do a lot of children, but.
But they're not running like lawnmowers and power tools and things?
If they're doing community service, no, we wouldn't put them on power equipment, but
Let
they
them
would
work
probably be cleaning
40
something.
hours a week.
Well, picking some trash up, emptying
See
some
what,
trash.
what life's like. 3 hours a week in a weed whacker.
That's right.
I did
Kids
it.
are soft.
I did it.
It's, yeah.
So,
But kids are-
we can, you could say, we can think about it and discuss it again. This doesn't happen until the school starts in the fall, so.
Matt, do you want to have a big bird box and bat box building day and put them in the parks?
I think from Public Works standpoint, I think we can help the school district out with this. You know, we'll obviously keep them safe and not have them doing anything that is dangerous. I do think a lot of folks, young folks today, if they see some life skills being done, it's probably a good thing. I'm not sure they see a lot of that depending on what their home situation is. So we may be able to expose them to some different things. I think we can make it work as long as, you know, internally we keep this thing to a manageable size, because I'm going to have someone watching them the entire time.
Get them shoveling some tar in potholes. That'll really build character.
They're off on snow days.
Hopefully they'll be done by then. It is a very small requirement,
Right,
12
it's a
hours
few.
over a month.
Yeah, I'm told there's no requirement other than checking off that they were here. We don't have to write up, you know, a synopsis of what they did or anything like that.
Or kids get too close to power tools.
We don't have to grade them.
So it's like Public Works, it's like, you know, kid cuts foot off. the
We can make it work to
wall,
assist them.
You know, like when industries, what's going on here. You know, helping.
Sally, we'll double check with Josh Kilmer and their people too, to make sure that they don't have any questions for bringing students on board. These,
We have a volunteer policy, I don't know.
well, we'll double check. Let's double check with them before we give the green light. to-
Yeah, and you have to check with the carrier, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. I was
Mr.
gonna say
Kilmer's our
that,
broker, so we'll make
There's
sure.
and-
transportation, we need to see, are they coming to us? 'Cause, I
Well,
mean,
there are child labor
and-
protective issues that kick in, if like, you know, I've had construction contractors that, you know, gotten in a lot of trouble because they had some intern get too close to a power saw or, you know, that kind of stuff, so. It's one thing to be putting books on the shelf in a library, but, you know, if you get out running lawnmowers and things, it's a very different world. That's true.
And I see 12-year-old Amish boys walking across roads every day with saws and hammers.
Okay, we'll do a little more checking on that. And,
I'm not joking.
I-
Really not.
item number 6 was a request from the fire marshal for a new vehicle, but we're evaluating the vehicle he's been assigned to see what it might take to fix it up and make it more reliable. Item number 7 there is an agenda item for our next business meeting. Amy Schreffler has submitted her resignation from the Civil Service Commission effective August 19th. And we do have an alternate on the Civil Service Commission, I think, who's willing to step up to the plate. So I think on that next agenda, we can probably do both, accept the resignation and appoint the alternate as a full member of the Civil Service Commission. Number 8 is just informational that we kicked around this discussion of the East Roosevelt one-way issue at our staff meeting and with our public safety director, public works, and so forth. And we don't know where council's at on that, if it's just tabled at this point, or we're moving on, or whether we're going to come back, because there was some discussion that we wanted to move forward with the four-way stop at Pine and Oak Hill.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna encompass a broader plan.
Well, I kept hearing that, but I never got
Any direction,
commitment
yeah.
from you whether or not I should bring HRG back here, because you were uncertain at that point whether we're gonna have more discussion on that.
I think it's helpful. What does everybody else think?
Yeah. I agree, it is time to look at all the other recommendations instead of just zeroing in on one. There are
Well,
other
the
valuable.
other recommendations we looked at as a group, as a staff, and we talked about the speed tables are in there, and we thought, well, Dan said he experienced one over in, was it East Hanover Township, I think, somewhere that's.
The little village of,
Grantville, is it?
no, it's just north of, Union Deposit, just north of Hershey.
He said it's pretty nice, but.
You go past the East Hanover Township building on 39 and take a right through Union Deposit. There's 2 speed tables, which would be a good, if you've never seen one or experienced one, it's a good example of how they function and how they work. And we just talked about it from an experience perspective, not much more than that.
Well, what's your thoughts?
Well, Greg's thoughts on the speed table were, he's just, one council beware, you put them in on this road, other people might want them as well, and it just keeps growing because you have to do special paint to alert that they're coming, and it's more maintenance. So one of the other things that, as far as policing, if you put them in the right place, they probably slow down traffic. Put them in the wrong place, they race to them, hit the brakes.
I went through it following the guidelines on the signs and the speed limit, and then I went through it not following the guidelines on the sign, and it
Bumped your
reminds
head?
you you're not following the guidelines. It's not like you're going over a speed bump too fast where your back end pops, not that I've ever done that, where your back end pops up. It calmed my driving. If the speed limit was 25 and I was going 35, it definitely had an impact on what you were doing, but I think they're designed not to make you lose control or, be too impactful, if that makes any sense.
The other thing we kicked around, and I know it's not in the study, they said that PennDOT typically, when you have a one-way street, you have one way the other way, and that's what, the folks on Oak Hill didn't want to have happen. But we thought, what about just making that one block of Roosevelt one way the whole way and nothing else? Like it originally was done several, a couple decades ago.
Originally, that was the concept, was just to make the last block one way, and then it got, because somebody wanted a bigger study done, we ended up spending all this extra money to get a study done, and then we got the results of the study done. They didn't like the results of the study, so we made a big deal out of it. And at this point, I don't care about Oak Hill Drive being one way. The people on Oak Hill and Briarcliff don't want it one way, and that's fine. The problem with the Roosevelt Avenue issue is because it's laid out in the study, it's only 30 feet wide, it's not made for vehicles in both directions. Yes, there's a speeding issue, and yes, it was in 1972 or 3, it was one way, and then for some reason it got changed a year later. So that was the original plan of this. Now, the rest of the HRG stuff I like. The 4-way stop at Pine and Oak Hill, great idea. Because when I drive through there, I'm going slow and I'm looking and people still drive through there. And the same thing with the speed tables. I know the speed tables he's talking about because I've driven that road. And there's one over in Royalton in Edgewater.
So are you a fan of speed tables?
They serve a purpose. They do serve a purpose. They make you slow down. You hit that thing going faster than you're supposed to, you're going to know it.
So we're looking at the 4-way, the East Roosevelt, the speed table.
And there were some other things on there that they talked about site clearance at East Roosevelt on Union Street and some standardization of crosswalks, I think.
Yeah, they talked about some things like site clearance that don't necessarily slow people down on Roosevelt or help with the tightness. There's really, a safety issue in pulling out on the Union Street that would help looking up that hill when you come out. Yeah. So there are other things in there that they said you could look at.
Right. I think we should adopt all their recommendations. And like I said, Oak Hill Drive doesn't need to be one way, but we should do something to slow some people down.
So you want me, maybe our next workshop, bring HRG in here and talk to Ryan, the traffic guy, about, what's the harm in making Roosevelt one way without a secondary street, or second street one way the other way?
That's a good idea, so we can just wrap this up once and for all.
Yeah, I'd like to get it done.
Yeah.
You know, we've been beating this up for almost a year now.
I mean, it sounds like, what, there's 4 or 5 bullet points, correct?
Yes.
At least, yeah.
The four-way Roosevelt Avenue, the last block, one way, some sight distance issues, and the speed tables, and whatever signage is required for them. I don't know. I'm not.
I mean, they're already in the study, correct? So HRG already weighed in on
I don't think speed tables were in
They
there.
were listed as a potential option.
Oh, okay.
If the changes increase the speed, because I think they talked specifically about the major issue was the width of the roadway is so much more than the speed. But if you make it a one-way street and it causes increased speed on that particular, result, speed tables and maybe, what did they call them, cutouts or?
Bump outs, yeah.
Things like that could be utilized to address the speed issue.
So it's like a two-step process.
Right, so you could do the changes, evaluate what type of traffic changes resulted from it, and then say, well, maybe a speed table in the block or two before that might impact that. I think that's, the very last bullet point was about addressing any changes that would come from.
So, it sounds like the speed tables and the bump outs could be retroactive if we have an issue. Is that, am I understanding?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think you need an ordinance for the speed tables or bump outs. But you do need an ordinance for a one-way street
Right.
and for the stop signs. So you could, if you wish, we could have, somebody from HRG come in here and say, is it going to be problematic with PennDOT or anybody if we make this one-way without having a one-way the other way?
Wasn't it?
And then Mr. Diamond from there could draft that ordinance. You could get the
Right.
stop signs, you could get the one-way. Then as Dan said, once it's one-way, evaluates what's happening with the speed on Roosevelt. And if people are speeding up because it's one-way now, they know they don't have to watch for oncoming traffic.
Well, the speeding issue doesn't matter if it's one way or both ways. Trust me, you sit in my driveway any day of the week.
I do trust you. I'm just saying when it, I guess from experience, traffic engineers
Yeah.
have noticed that when you do make streets one way, they go even faster than maybe what they're
Why
going
don't we
at.
have HRG here next meeting?
Sure, we can
If
do that.
anybody has any
Yeah.
question, why don't we have HRG here next meeting? Why don't we have the solicitor prepare those documents or those ordinances that way? And then if anybody has any questions for HRG, they're here. If they don't, they don't.
Okay.
So right now, the only thing the ordinance
Be the
would address
four-way-
is the
the four-way
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 stop
and one
sign
way- One way.
and one way on the first block of East Roosevelt.
And it sounds like there's other actions would be if needed,
And we can do that without an ordinance.
and we can do that without an ordinance. So
Okay.
if, we get the police down there after the change is made, oh man, these people are going crazy. Okay, let's throw some speed bumps in.
Does every house on the first block of East Roosevelt have off-street parking?
Yes, they do. Every house on that street has off-street parking. Problem is, those houses were all built in the 50s when there was one car per family.
Yeah. One-car garages, most of them
Yep.
said two. Yeah.
I'm telling you, if it was me, I would take that little patch of grass on both sides, and I bump it right back, and I put brand new curbs in, I put all the electric infrastructure in the ground,
Yep.
and I would just make that road.
All the electric's in the backyard.
Okay, so that even helps you there, because you know poles there.
So
There's no
what,
poles on that.
only problem with taking that patch of grass is everybody's water and gas shut-offs are in that patch of grass.
It's okay.
And their sewer cleanouts? I think they,
No,
Not the clean outs, that's not big enough.
oh, my dad's old house sure has a sewer clean out at the curb. Maybe he just had that done
I
separately, but.
don't think there is one. I don't know.
It's okay, everybody gets new curbs and put the clean outs in the yard. That's what I'm
Matt?
doing.
Just one thing while I'm thinking, it may help the engineer from HRG, because if they're here and you ask them to come here and you hit them blindsided with questions, he's probably not going to be able to answer them right.
Tell them to come prepared.
Well.
Oh, it's on the topic.
If you have questions, maybe get them
Then you're gonna have
to us ahead of time, and then we can kind of
I don't think
give
there's
him an
space.
idea.
You come through there on certain days.
I think you just picked up the gist, so maybe you can tell them. Maybe the one way without making no-kill one way.
At the end of the street.
Um, the other things as far as speed table, and we're not really going to address those unless there's a speeding problem. But we can ask him, confirm does a speed table require any special approvals, or I don't know that they do, but
As far as I know, where we placed them in the past, they do not.
yeah,
PennDOT has a manual for installing them,
Yeah.
designing them, but,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I can give Erica a heads up.
I think he has in the study already did as far as the site distance issue there at Roosevelt and Union. I think it'd be a matter of taking a tree down that's in the right of way.
Yeah, I think he's talking about
Ask
that
Matt
first
Miller
tree
to
on
make
the
more
corner
copies of this
on the
real quick.
900 block
How
of
many copies
Union
did you
Street.
bring?
I think that's what he's talking
Is
about.
this just one?
Yeah, that's the email.
Because I pull up there in my truck, I can see fine up the hill. I pull up there in Deb's Explorer,
Yeah.
it's a different story.
Email explaining.
I'm good.
Okay, and if there's no more questions on that, number 9's, we went out with an RFP for IT managed services. We're going to be reviewing those submittals tomorrow and whittling them down, and at some point we'll be back in here with a recommendation for approval for a new contract for IT services. Probably most of you know, some park equipment was delivered down at Huffer Park, and we've secured that in where the tennis courts are because it was just laying loose out in the streets. We asked for a gal to put it where it could be safe and not, you know.
Yeah, I saw that. Looks better.
The borough will be hosting the Capillary Council of Governments Managers meeting for the first time, I think, ever, here
Excellent.
at Borough Hall on August the 9th. So I will be preparing for that, so you'll see that I'll probably spend a little bit of money for coffee and donuts, that sort of thing. But generally attended by anywhere from 18 to 25 managers from around the area. So
Where will you gather?
we're probably going to set up over here in the conference room.
Okay.
I think we can all squeeze in there, either there or here, but,
Mhm.
so. Yeah, good stuff. So I don't think I have any other issues here. I mean, there's a note on there that I guess the state Senate House, you've heard of those, the lines have been redrawn, so we're going to have Mr. DeSantis now as our representative going forward. That's all I have.
Excellent. Agenda item number 9, finance, Sally?
Hello.
Hi, Sally.
Hi, Sally.
There's only a few items that I have on my agenda, but something I do not have on the agenda is related to the American Rescue Grant. We were notified, I think 2 days ago, that the state did not utilize all their funds, so they were going to reallocate to municipalities who were already participating in ARPA. We will net between a first payment and a second payment, get about an additional $3,000
Excellent. Excellent news.
for ARPA. The second item is the treasury note that we invested last year. I believe it was in October, to cover the bank fees. I had brought this up last month. I did talk to Pete's and I'm recommending that we keep the $2.5 million in the treasury note. It will give us approximately a little bit over $15,000 a year in interest, depending on the market, with a grand total of a little bit over $40,000. It comes to maturity on 10/15/2024. This way, we get the interest. We're not incurring any penalties by pulling it out early. There is a commitment letter that does require Ian's signature for that. The second item is I attached a preliminary budget planning schedule for you to review and approve at the next business meeting. If there are any dates on here that are not good for anybody, let me know, and we can try to adjust them. I try not to have them on Tuesdays when we have council meeting, or Fridays, but that's everything.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item number 10, Director.
Hello.
Hi.
So my police secretary started last week, Sydney Trossel, stopped down to see her, she's great, say hi. She'd be mad at me, I spelled her name wrong on this, so I apologize, Cindy, if you're watching, but I spelled her name wrong. So one of the things she's working on is uniform crime reporting. I'm sure you've heard of the UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting. It was last done December of 2021. So we're picking it up from January, and we're going to make sure they get submitted. And one of the things that's important is that they're submitted accurately, because we like to know what's happening in the borough, and we like to know specifically what crime issues are happening. So even though they were submitted in the past, I'm not sure it was double-checked for accuracy based on the type of crimes that were committed. You know, the easiest example is somebody says, my house was robbed. Well, your house was burglarized, your house wasn't robbed. And it's important that when we do crime reporting and we do comparisons and council says, hey, what kind of crimes occurred in the borough over the last 6 months, that we have an accurate reflection of that. So that's something she's working on. The PD staffing thing was addressed earlier on the agenda. I'm requesting that we can approve the Middletown Borough Police Policy Manual based on our Lexipol policy manual service. Lexipol is a service that we subscribe to, and I'll go over it a little bit for you to remind you of what it actually does. It's a private company that provides a library of state-specific, customizable law enforcement policies. They have staff of attorneys, former law enforcement officers, and they provide law enforcement policies based on recent court cases, trends in law enforcement, things that are happening around the state and around the country. And what's nice about this is there's automatic updates associated with it. So if things happen or things change that they recommend your policy be changed, it gets pushed out to the department, we evaluate it based on our needs, and then we can adopt it or not adopt it. An excellent example of that is in 2020, the Department of Justice pushed out some recommendations to law enforcement to update their use of force policies specific to what was happening in the country. And one of some of the things they recommended was making sure like de-escalation was a part of your use of force policy. That officers, although training and what we do always involves de-escalation, having it as part of your policy is something that should be done. Not having chokeholds in your policy, duty to intervene, the whole duty to intervene concern of if I'm a police officer and I see somebody violating my use of force policy, I'm obliged to intervene. So things like that would be pushed out to us from Lexipol. So this policy that I'm going to ask you to approve is something that's vetted through this. We pay for this service specifically to make sure that our policies are current and up to date. So I'm going to print out a copy of it. It'll be down at my office if anybody wants to come down and review it or has any questions about specific policies or how we do that. You can give me a call or you can come see them. But our policy has to be approved by Borough Council. So, and this is something that's been in the department for a period of time, but it hasn't been approved yet as our current policy manual. I think the last manual was approved in 14 or 15.
Can I sign these resolutions?
Jim, what we're talking about here is, what we need to do to clean this up is the police department currently has a policy procedures manual that was adopted by ordinance back in 2013 or 14. And there was one subsequent resolution that changed something to that particular manual. But what we're looking at now is using a whole different set of police policies and procedures that are provided by Lexipol. And while you were out, I spoke to Attorney Mike Miller about this, and he briefly mentioned that we'd have to approve Lexipol by a resolution to that ordinance that basically, I guess, is replacing the existing policy manual with the new Lexipol manual. So if you're not on that I know you're probably still catching up on.
Yeah, no, I was aware of that. What I want to do is look at the old ordinance, because maybe actually
I
more
think I might have
appropriate.
sent it to you, but if I didn't.
Yeah, I was
let
gonna
me
say
know.
to do it by ordinance as opposed to resolution.
Yeah, you're surprised that they did that by ordinance.
Yeah, no, it really, I mean, but theoretically, when you embed it in an ordinance, it takes what they call dignity of an ordinance to change it.
Mhm. That's
Um,
what I thought.
Unless the ordinance says, certain components will be set by resolution.
We have
So
those.
we'll
get
we may have to do it by an advertised ordinance.
The other thing about Lexipol is, having the policy is one thing, but, making sure that it's read and followed is another. They have what are called daily training bulletins, where they put every time an officer signs onto a computer, the first time that day, not every time, there's a brief, 3-line statement and a question about policy examples. Like, does your use of force policy allow this, or this? The officer answers the question, yes or no. It's not documented whether he got it right. It's documented that he reviewed it. So we can show that as a department and as a borough, we have policies, we're training on them, and that we're implementing them in place. So the program itself isn't just about the policies, it's about making sure that they're being implemented and followed.
It's great, good for insurance rates too.
I understand if you have it, this can have an impact on your insurance rates, this type of program. So.
Director Wright, do I recall that before you got here, there was some movement on creating a policy for body cams? Does this help position us to move forward on that?
This would be inclusive of that. That's been somewhat addressed. I think we're waiting on some feedback from the attorneys on that.
Okay.
That would then be adopted as part of the Lexipol policy. It allows you to add your own policies in there
Okay,
as part of it.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
Excellent. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 11, Public Works, Mr. Miller.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Matt.
Pretty much most of the points of interest were the normal things that we do. We are trying to keep up with our weed season throughout town here and everything. One of our employees did just pass his exams, so we can go back to spraying chemicals and not necessarily relying on vinegar.
Well, that's great news.
So hopefully we can get some better residual effect and try to keep the weeds at bay. Looks like Greg had on here working on the street cut ordinance too. We had a pretty good discussion last week internally, and Jim, we've talked about this before, Diamond, about how we're going to address some of these little pieces that are, I don't know if Greg had reached out to you yet or not, but
No, I haven't heard.
that's
from
what it
Greg
will
yet.
be regarding. So we'll have I've explained your and my conversations and your opinion, so he'll work with you on that, and we'll see what we can make happen there. Veolia is working on some water pressure issues. I did meet with M3T today, working on the fob and camera system. We did this building, and we went down to PD, and that took most of today to go over these two buildings. And if you recall, we engaged them to do design for us. And what we are doing is working on the design now. I said that Hopper Park cameras and access control are our two big things right now that we need to focus on so that we can get those squared away. So they're aware of that. They will start doing design as early as tomorrow, and they will have some cut sheets to us. They're anticipating within probably 2 or 3 weeks, we will have cut sheets for the equipment that they're proposing. So I'm hoping within a month or so, we should have a design and we should have numbers that we can start putting the pieces of the puzzle together
Well,
and
did you-
go from there.
Did you get to talk to them? I mean, Greg had mentioned to me that they can price this in a way that's almost like module. Like
Yep.
when we see the prices, we can say, okay, we're going to do this part, but not this one,
Yes.
and pick
Yeah,
and
it's
choose.
pretty much all going to be à la carte kind of
And
a
will there
deal.
be some like preliminary design before we get too far down the road so that we can see what you talked to them about? Because I overheard you talking to them today about cameras, and it looked like you were talking about cameras in the hallway, and I'm not sure that's what I envisioned. when we
It's all
originally
in
did
the
project.
design that we had talked with them about. It was all included in
It's
there.
in the original design?
Mhm. In their cost proposal that we had done for them originally. So what they're looking at this as is, they're being totally upfront with it, and they're kind of going to do a complete design for whatever it is that we may need, and then we can keep the design on the shelf, and we can add on to the design as we choose to.
Or take from?
Yes, yep, yeah, it's all gonna be pick and choose what we decide to do, what our needs are, what our budgetary allowances
Okay.
are. But they're looking to do a one big holistic design for us, so that then we could look at each year's annual budget and go, we wanna do some of this, it's already been designed, so we don't have to go back to the engineering. all
I
the
got
time.
you.
So, they're extremely responsive, I believe we are definitely on the right track, with this. They are also, CoStar's installer. So, we can look at, once we see the prices, we can see what we want to do here, but, they're much better than what we've had in the past.
This is a project we were gonna pay for with a certain amount of ICDA money.
Right.
Set aside.
Once we get the pricing, if money is not an issue, what's the turnaround time on ordering equipment, acquiring equipment, installation of equipment?
He said it can vary just with anything. The equipment is electronic, it all requires chips and so forth like that. They would anticipate that we should be able to have something in place definitely by the end of the year. So I'm kind of excited to get the design and, try and get moving on this thing. So, and it sounds there as well. They've been great to work with, so it's kind of refreshing.
Yes.
There was Greg I apologize, I was off last week, so Greg did most of the report here. Cooper Engineering, who has been doing the substation design for us, is recommending the borough invest into peak shaving generation to help offset the borough's power purchase and pass-through costs. This would potentially require acquisition of property within close proximity to a substation. Talking about Bastien's old car garage. I'm assuming that's my understanding, yes. So I don't have any, forgive me,
Right.
I don't understand how much we would need to invest in, what the cost of a generator would be, or what the system would be. I can work with Greg to get that information to you, because obviously that's going to factor into your decision on what we want to do with this. He's been off a couple days this week, so it's actually been about a week and a half since I've seen Greg.
You guys been playing tag?
Yes, yeah, ships passing in the night kind of a deal. Number 18, Mr. Stoltzfus made his presentation. Along with that, as I noted in there, my only things that I would add on to that would be, from a maintenance standpoint, if it would stretch into December, I would want to have a discussion with them about snow removal and how that's going to be handled, as well as we would need to see the detour plan up front so we can ensure that their detour signage is going to meet the requirements. We're just not going to throw a road closed sign up for 3 months and call it good. So they would be from a public works maintenance standpoint, they would be my two issues that I would want to see as part of the permit if we decide to go that route with them. Also included on here, HRG completed and attached.
Can we notify him of that? Mr. Solstice,
As far as the
those concerns, yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
detour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He heard a little bit of that, but we'll follow up with that.
Right, there's two questions there. Snow removal, I don't think.
Oh, no, you're right. Snow
Yeah.
removal, we did. Yeah, we'll follow
Yeah,
up.
just if we could notify him of that before the 5th, so he can.
Sure.
Yep, yeah, I'll get his contact information. It's probably on the permit, so I can get a quick email out to them and just let them know we want to have that. The study here was dated July 14th for Ann Street and South Catherine Street parking restrictions study. Looks like this was brought about due to a concern regarding site distance and minimum stopping site distance. It does call out in here that there would be a reduction of about 90 feet on the southwest corner, 55 feet on the southeast corner. These are all included in your packet. There's a diagram. 80 feet on the northeast corner and 60 feet on the northwest corner. Just looking very quickly here, I was just looking on Google Earth, actually while Dan was giving his report. It looks like I'm gonna say you're probably gonna lose 3 parking spaces on each corner if we go this route.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Yes, sir.
I've driven by the location 3 different times since I got the notice of this traffic study. And then every time there was no less than 5 cars that would be lost to the parking. There was parking up the street in either direction, but there was cars that would lose, people that are accustomed to parking there would lose their parking spots. I'm not suggesting that changes the decision, but it would impact people that are either living or working. I don't know if there's working there or not. However, one of the cars that was there 2 of the time was a work van that clearly obstructed view from somebody trying to pull out that was legally parked at the time.
Right.
So,
We should have one of these on.
you can't say only low cars can park here so people can see over it. So, on the other hand, one of the cars that regularly parks there impacts the site distance. So, just my 2 cents from checking the area.
The little block there at the underpass to Wilson, could we put in diagonal spots there to maybe help increase some of that parking there? There's like the dead end there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right on the other side.
On
'Cause that-
Catherine Street, you're talking about.
Yeah, like right over on the other
I
side.
mean, there.
I mean, it might help a little bit. Could we put,
Typically, people just don't really walk far. That's one of the issues with people.
Right.
I mean, there's a guy that parks his truck down there. I know people do. They have a couple trailers parked down there on a regular basis. Angle parking, it does eat up space a little bit. I'd have to check the width because with angle spacing, you need a wider road. Like the other Catherine Street on the right other side of this has
right,
angle parking.
that's
because
what,
it's
that's,
very
what- yeah.
wide. I'd have to make sure that that same width carries through on that other block. It's something we could look at. Just off the top of my head, it might gain,
Well, I'm
5
thinking the
spaces
truck
or
would have to
something.
move.
yes.
The campers probably couldn't go there. They'd have to go
Right.
somewhere else in town. So maybe those 5 spots could be put there.
Yeah, I
It's just
bring
an
it up
idea.
that You will lose parking spaces with this as presented, so it would be something that you folks would definitely have to take under advisement and consideration for this.
This change would require an ordinance, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's establishing no parking zones.
So, council, do we want to put this on, direct the solicitor to draft the ordinance, or do we want to think about this some more before you move
I want to
forward?
think about it. Who wants to think about it? I want to drive by and look at it for myself. Anybody else want to think about it?
And just another thing, I never drove by in the evening, okay, so if you are gonna drive by, it might be useful to try, 7 or 8 o'clock or when people are settled for the night. Tell you how many people it's in.
Let's table it. All right.
2 action items that we had on here was to approve the solicitor to draft the revised ordinance. Obviously, that's gotten tabled until you folks take a look at it and have better information. And approval of the street closure request from Solstice Company. Sounds as though you don't have to approve that this evening. We were going to go back and forth a little bit more with them and define their permit a little bit better. So both action items, I believe, would be a moot point for us this evening.
All right, thank you.
You are very welcome.
Thanks, Matt.
I had a quick question. Oh,
Yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead, Scott.
I'm sorry.
Just had a question on the street cut on Vine Street. Is that all completed? Because a gentleman had asked me that lives on Vine between Roosevelt and I believe it's Chestnut, heading towards Hershey,
Okay.
that there's 3 cuts in towards the properties that the road is not paved, and everywhere else that was addressed. Is that piece to remain as is, or do we know if it's completed?
As far as I know, it is completed. PennDOT has different standards on how close the trenches are to require a full overlay than what ours is. Theirs is, I think, a little bit more lax as far as how many trenches you have to have in a certain area. So PennDOT has overseen the paving out there since that's a state roadway. We don't have really any control over what they had the contractor put back in.
But I
But
think
my
those
understanding is,
trenches on that side look like they're finished trenches to me.
yeah, I believe everything's
It's
done.
it's on, yeah, it's between
Like it has to
Roosevelt and I
top.
think Chestnut.
Yeah, he's probably thinking they're maybe gonna overlay that whole lane on
Yeah,
that side. But
yeah.
I think they're done.
Yeah, I believe they're done.
Okay. I mean, they asked me, they thought it was similar to other areas.
Yeah, they followed, like Matt said, followed PennDOT's requirements for either restoring this trench or overlaying a lane on that job.
Yeah, because it is some large patches and some trenches and some large patches on the north side. And yeah, the south side they did, the north side does have some difference. That's all PennDOT's requirements there. Yes, ma'am.
I had a quick question, I guess more on the electric side. Greg's last report mentioned, for at least the first time I heard, the idea of integrating into our electric business going forward solar. And it was presented in a way as if it would be a good idea, or, so I was just wondering if there should be more follow-up to that idea,
The
where
24,
things stand.
I did,
Because
I did
the
follow up
specifics
on that.
the 24
And that's
acres
sold.
is gone.
It's gone.
It's sold for 500.
I saw the sign was still up, but I wondered.
Yeah, I called.
Okay.
Yeah, I think kind of like what dovetails in with what he was talking about with the potential purchase of property, if we go that direction, would be the peak load is typically a fossil fuel generated, kind of instantaneous power source to help shave off our demand on our worst days. So it would be some form of fossil fuel generator system to provide that power so that it's kind of complex how it works, but it would help shave our overall cost throughout the
So
year.
it's something you'd use one day or whenever the peak days of the year, you'd run it
Correct.
just for those days, whereas solar is something that generates power every day.
Yeah.
Peak generation may run like at 3 PM every day through this month,
Right.
whatever. It's,
Well, I bring it up again because the way I heard it was, this is a good idea, but we missed an opportunity. So if this is something that we should be hearing about and thinking about and being better prepared for another opportunity, I would just ask that that be something that at least maybe shows up on the report, or
Okay.
we keep informed.
Yeah, I can work with Greg on that to find out more of, what size field we need and what capacity we may need to produce from solar, because that's really the starting point
Right.
to find
Because
out.
what I heard was, that's a good idea, we should do it, and we're too late to take advantage of this perfect opportunity, so it'd be a shame to miss another perfect opportunity.
Agreed.
Thank you.
She mentioned perfect opportunity. But, well, I mean, I'd just like to know everyone's opinion on Bastine's end, because it's for sale right now.
I think maybe you can get into a little deeper discussion on that real estate in executive session.
okay.
Okay.
If you
Because
wanna-
perfect opportunity, I
Yeah.
mean,
Since it is real estate, maybe we can get into more detail.
Okay.
How people-
Excellent.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, I did look into getting seal coat quote for down at offer.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I haven't gotten it back yet. So they're working up the price to, and Ellen, I did look at, I got some sand samples dropped off for
Oh,
the
thank you.
volleyball court. So if we can get some time here, we're gonna take probably a foot of sand out of the basket, or out of the volleyball court, excuse me.
That's great.
And put new sand in there.
Thank you, Matt.
200 tons worth of sand, but we'll make it happen.
How bad are the basketball courts?
The basketball courts aren't too bad. They were crack sealed. They were actually overlaid a few years ago. The tennis courts are probably need to be completely removed and redone. And I think the tennis courts, from what I'm hearing from people who know the situation, people are playing tennis out at the school.
That's
because
right.
they're open all the time and they're much nicer. So I'd be hesitant to maybe do a lot with the tennis courts until we go through this recreation plan, because yes, the tennis
Oh,
courts
yes.
may be converted into something else.
Right.
And if you were going to convert them, are you in this? You're getting a seal coat quote. You're not doing anything in terms of repaving the area that is currently the tennis court, is that right?
Correct. I think at this point that there are inch-wide cracks in the tennis court. So if it's going to require a tremendous amount of effort for something that we don't believe is really used.
Yeah.
And we may be able to just wait until the study is completed and then spend our money in a more productive use.
Do we have a time for August 2nd? Just as a quick aside.
No, the email from Caitlin said that she'd let me know by later this week.
Okay.
What time we'll meet, but it is going to be in the morning. I just don't know what happened.
Okay, because I saw Nate Deagle and put it on his
Yeah,
calendar.
he wants to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to work on that. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a really fun project.
Include
and
that's
it will-
on your calendar?
Nope.
Okay,
August 2nd.
well, we'll put it on then.
Anything else for Public Works?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Agenda item number 12, Viola. Oh, they're not here again. Agenda item number 13, Council. Mayor, anybody have anything?
I do have
Go ahead,
one
Jim.
thing then, just to throw in, and that is, I have with me, I'm asking to be put on the agenda for the next meeting, an ordinance to update our international property maintenance code. State is recommending that municipalities update their reference to the 2018 edition. We have the 2015, which is the last, most recent one. A lot of municipalities still have 2009. But I have with me, not, no action tonight, but we do have an ordinance to update that to the 2018 IPMC. We can have-
Yeah, put that on the agenda. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Kleinpeter, do we have any updates for the Emaw and Union Street paving?
Yeah, the notice to proceed went out, I think on July 1st. I know Josh Sheets went on vacation, I think the second week of July or third week of July. So I'm waiting until when he gets back this week or next week to find out, whereas I know there were some insurance certificates that had to be delivered yet. And then we'll be ready to sign the papers and then have our kickoff meeting.
Okay.
So,
If I may, just one more quick thing, just as an FYI, we will be closing Oak Hills Park. The contractor pushed back. We are going to be closing it on Monday, August 1st.
Oh.
We will be putting fence up and closing it, and we will start demo that week. The contractor is anticipated to come in on I guess it will be the 8th. So you will see Oak Park being closed, the playground, the whole way from the parking lot to Roosevelt Avenue.
Right.
Oak Hills.
Oak Hills.
Matt, what are we doing out there? Taking out all the existing play equipment. They will be putting in, a walking path. They will be installing new equipment. There will be some benches along the walking path. There's gonna be some trees being planted. There's gonna be a small rain garden installed out there. Some of the work we have to do as part of our match, we have to pave the path, we have to put in the wood carpet, we have to purchase the benches and some of the other things. So Public Works will be working on those items here in the fall, but just in case people will see the fence going up and they'll know something's going on. Just want to give you a heads up.
Okay. Yes.
I'm just gonna note that Ian has left.
Yeah,
Okay.
President Redinger had to leave, so if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn and move into executive session? We will not be returning.
Public comment,
Pardon me?
public comment.
Public comment,
Oh,
General.
general public comment, pardon me.
It all worked up, Jack.
There's only one of these for the president. You were talking about bump outs. I think they're a waste of money. They take parking spaces away, and they take right turn lanes away. So that's my thought on bump outs. But this here is, I'd like to have this put in the minutes then too. L. Scott Brandt passed away Sunday, July 10th, 2022, in his home on East Water Street. Scott wasn't probably only one of the oldest Middletown residents. He was also probably the oldest public elected official in Middletown that was still alive. So,
Thank you, thanks for bringing
Yeah,
that up,
thank you,
Jack.
Jack. That's so interesting.
I had the honor of meeting him a few years ago on his birthday. He was, for those into the history of Middletown, they used to have what was called a burgess instead of a mayor. So, Mr. Brandt was actually the last burgess and the first mayor of Middletown. So, he was a wonderful person, and certainly we send our condolences to his family.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn and move into executive session? We will not be returning.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?